Swami Chinmaya was in Italy, and he was on a bridge, just looking at the water below. And someone who practices Islam, I believe he was Sufi, he came to Swami Chinmaya and said, "Why do you Hindus wear those dots on your forehead?" So Gurudev said, "Every Hindu in the morning offers their prayers. They remember God. And at the end of their morning ritual, then they put sandalwood paste on their forehead. Sandalwood paste is a cooling agent, so it keeps their mind cool." And this person was very appreciative of that practice. And then Gurudev followed up saying, "So if you meet a Hindu without a dot on their forehead, stay away from them." Because they didn't cool their mind that morning. What Gurudev is saying is that sadhana leads to the sadhya. Discipline leads to joy. When I say sadhana, what thoughts come to your mind immediately? What do you think of? Chatushtaya, yes. But you don't say that very happily. What else do you think of? Japa, puja. Some people think it's a chore. I have to finish my sadhana. In one place I had asked, when I say sadhu, what do you think of? And the first response came, a poor person. So if you're poor, you're a sadhu all of a sudden. And if you're rich, you can't be a sadhu. We take sadhana and put it in a box. This box is desha, kala, vastu. We limit sadhana by space, time, and matter. Sadhana only happens in your room, your quiet room, in your home. It only happens in the morning. It only happens with this group of people. Now change that from sadhana to happiness. Happiness only happens in this room, in the morning, with these people. Does it sound very nice? But that's what we do. If you meet some parents whose kids go to Balavihar, they become Yuvakendra, etc., they often tell their kids, be religious, but don't be too religious. And when I hear that, I want to change those words for those parents. You're really saying is be happy, but don't be too happy. That's what parents are saying. Parents, is that a good way to parent? You don't want your kids to be too happy. We're hypocrites in that regard. Just another personal example of this. Someone had invited me to Bhiksha. Parents are sitting across from me. Their 10-year-old girl is sitting to my right. I'm sitting here, asking me questions about Sandipani. And I happened to say, how would you feel if your daughter goes to Sandipani? And immediately the mother says, I'd be disappointed. You invited me to your house. Why are you insulting me over here? Well, she didn't realize it. She couldn't catch her hypocrisy. That she wants her kids to learn from an Acharya or child, but doesn't want them to be one. And this is actually the greater need for an Acharya, because the word Acharya means the one who leads by example. They don't just speak, they live beyond Desha, Kala, Vastu. And in our case, it is Acharya Shankara. From the time he was born to the time he died, he only practiced what he taught us 2 nights ago and what he's going to teach us in the forthcoming days. So let's go back to our first shloka and our first sadhana. Our first sadhana was to reflect on the Veda perpetually. A subjective science is the most demanding science because you cannot touch it, you cannot manipulate it. It is you. It is the most demanding, but it is also the most rewarding. Because this joy also comes from you. That's why we have to perpetually reflect on these teachings. And what was the practice, the first practice? Read for 20 minutes, that which is inspiring every morning. The second piece of advice that Acharya Shankara gives us is, after you learn the Veda, then follow your responsibilities. And I'd talked to you about the Pancharinas. Anyone who's created has a responsibility to creation. So here are the Pancharinas. Very beautiful subject. Rina means debt. Anyone who's not enlightened is a taker, is not a giver. Debt number 1, we go to the farthest from us, is called Deva Rina. The debt we owe to nature's forces. What are some of nature's forces that we owe a debt to that are contributing to our lives? Rain, sun, gravity. Imagine there was no gravity. You take one step, you take off. When was the last time you were grateful to gravity? Vedo nityamadiyatam, perpetually we should be. The second debt is to bhutas, bhutarina. Bhuta means nature's beings. What are some of nature's beings that we owe a debt to? Trees, worms, cows. Exactly, everything. Third, samaj rina, the debt we owe to society. Why do we owe a debt to society? They sustain us, they protect us, they teach us, they govern us. Have you ever had to fight in a war? No, but someone is. Someone is protecting this country and other countries. The debt to society, samaj rina. Closer, number 4, pitra rina, the debt we owe to our ancestors, our families. Why? Why do we have a debt to our families? Because they give birth to us, yes. Why else? Learning how to dress, how to cook, how to clean, how to shave, everything we learn from our families. And the closest rina is rishi rina, the debt we owe to our rishis, who worked so hard to become independent and then made that accessible to us. Gurudev went to Gangotri to study. Now you see people like Guruji, they come to our homes to teach us, isn't it? This is what our Veda is teaching us. Be grateful. Grateful people exemplify greatness. And there's a tradition, our Swami Sharadananda does this a lot. For those who have come on yatras with me to Bharat, Swami Sharadananda, when he eats, he'll take 5 small bites and then eat the rest of his meal. Devarina, Bhutarina, Samajrina, Pitarina, Rishirina, and then eats. Because that meal is not possible without those 5 parties. It's something that you should all do also, not just Brahmarpanam. But then remember, the food will taste better. What was our practice for number 2? Our practice. Delete the word but. How's that going for you? But we forgot. Number 3 is, as we're following our responsibilities, we tend to get tired, so we have to remember to offer this to the divine. The only altar in our lives that will not disappoint us is Bhagwan. Even our guru will disappoint us as long as they're alive, because we are egotistical and we project our mistakes onto them. But with Bhagwan, Bhagwan is the only altar that will not disappoint us. So we should work for Bhagwan. What was our practice for number 3? Om Shivaya Samarpayami. As we're working for Bhagwan, this helps us to slowly let go of selfishness. selfish thinking, speaking, acting. And I had talked about a shika at that time. If you're hiking up to Tobago with your feet bare and you get a thorn in your feet, what do? You find a smaller thorn to take that thorn out. Yes, the bigger thorn. And then what do you do with the smaller thorn? Put it in your foot because it feels good. No, you throw it away. That's the desire for freedom. This desire takes out all of the other thorns, and when you're free, you let go of that also. So it's a thorn for a thorn. What was our practice for number 4? Gratitude guide. What are you grateful for today? Life. What are you grateful for? We're grateful for your laugh. Food, yeah. Ice cream, right? So much to be. You can just go on and on and on. Number 5 was to wash away the sins that live in our hearts. The hridaya grantihi. Here, this word papa is a very interesting word because it's so objective and subjective. Someone had come into a room to meet Swami Chinmaya and then said, "Gurudev, save me. I'm going to hell." And he said, "Why? I've cheated people, I've lied to people, I've betrayed people. You have to save me from going to hell." And Swami Chinmaya said, "Relax, you're not going anywhere." And he said, he felt like he was being insulted. "What do you mean I'm not going anywhere?" He said, "You're already there." He was already in hell. Where was he going to go? When we lie or cheat or steal or whatever we do, we already put ourselves in hell. So to cut those knots of our heart, nobody can send us to hell other than ourselves. That's why it said it's in our bosom. That's a weird Vedantic word too. Bosom, dacoit. What was the other one? Auspicious. You should make a book of weird Vedantic words. What was our practice for number 5? Speak positively. Next, Acharya Shankara says, as you experience pleasure, be thoughtful that built into pleasure is pain. And Swamiji was mentioning that about vairagya. Vairagya is knowing that nothing is intrinsically pleasurable. You project that pleasure. And if you can understand and appreciate that, you get independent of that. This is called vichara. Vichara cuts vikshepa. Vikshepa means to project. This ice cream is going to make me happy. The sun is going to make me happy. This person is going to make me happy. This award, this present, this accolade. But it's just a projection. And if you can get into the habit of being someone who's engaged in vichara, as that projection is growing, if you cut it, the sooner you cut it, the less destructive it is, correct? Vichara cuts vikshepa. Our practice for number 6, review your disturbances during the day. Not in the morning, your day will become worse. Not at night, you won't be able to sleep. During the day, so you can keep working on it. Number 7 is be steady and sincere in feeling the self, the Atma. What Swami Tejramananda taught us about this particular message, there's a triputi every moment. The experienced, the experiencing, and the experiencer. And he said, as long as you don't know the experiencer, you haven't had a single complete experience ever. If you don't know who the experiencer is, there are no complete experiences, which is why we live so much in the past and future. But once you get to know the experiencer, that experience is complete. You don't want it again. You don't need it again. That's what we need to know. Who is The student. Who is the learner? Who is the person who's aware? What was the practice for number 6? Review your quietude. It's not coming from anywhere but you. You've all heard of the term hangry before. Hangry is when you're hungry and you become angry. And in that state of hangry, all you need is some sort of carbohydrate, some sort of sugar. And as soon as you consume that, all of a sudden the anger goes away. And what do we think made the anger go away? Sugar. Right? Avichara krito bandhaha. Not thinking binds us. Vicharena nivartate. By thinking we are freed. Quietude is coming from you. And finally, to run away from home. Our unfortunate home is this body. And if you think about it, do you remember your kindergarten graduation pictures? And you graduated into grade 1? You've not seen one of those images? In your mind, at least? Okay. How about graduating from grade 8 into grade 9? It's a very awkward phase of life, right? You sort of have a mustache, you sort of don't, and I don't know how girls look awkward in that stage, but I'm sure they look awkward. Braces. Okay, we'll say braces at the time. Graduating into university, you've seen that picture? Graduating from university. For those who are married, your marriage picture. Which body are you? I'm just taking select pictures and so different. Who are you? Then if you go from the waking to the dream, you can be a completely different body in your dream state. When you're asleep, you don't know you are a body. And so definitively we live like this is who I am. It's hilarious. It really is laughable how convinced we are that we are this body. Is it on your birth certificate? Think about thoughts. Who said that thoughts you have are your thoughts? Why do you own them? Do you own the clouds? Do you own the breeze? Why do you own thoughts? What was the practice for number 8? When you see a mirror, close your eyes. In the morning, I'm doing the devotion for the high school students. So I was a little bit more compassionate with them. I told them they can only use a mirror, their home mirrors. Outside of their home, they cannot use mirrors, but in their home, they can use their mirrors. So I'm giving them the same message as you. We continue. We're on verse 2. Please chant after me. Sangha satsu vidhiyatam bhagavato bhaktir dhridhadhiyatam. Shantyadif parichiyatam dhridataram karmashu santyajyatam. Sadvidvanupasripyatam pratidinam tat paduka sevyatam. Brahmekaksharam shruti-shiro vakyam samakarnyatam. Sangha satsu vidhiyatam. Vidhiyatam means to do. You'll see this word vidhiyatam or some sort of word like this before all of these practices. Satsang. When you hear the word satsang, what text and what shloka do you tend to think of? Bhajagovindam, which shloka? 9. Satsangatve. Nischala Tattve Jivan Mukti. And how did Jivan Mukti start? Satsang. Acharya Shankara is sharing this. Same Acharya Shankara. How do you reach Jivan Mukti? Satsang. In satsang, we learn to become dependent on ourselves. Everyone will leave you other than you. And in satsang, that's what we learn, to depend on ourselves. That's from the perspective of the Shastra. Now I come to Adhyatma. Guruji had once asked us, how do you become a bhakta? I'm asking you, how do you become a bhakta? Love. It's hard to hear you with the air conditioner. Good. Spending time with the Lord. Spending time with the company of other bhaktas. Good. He said, in a very assertive way, live with bhaktas. If you live with bhaktas, you naturally, through osmosis, even if you don't want to be there, through osmosis, become one too. I've seen people who study from whoever their resident acharyas, they start to act like them. They speak like them, they act like them. It's very fascinating to see that. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying living with bhaktas, you become that. And Acharya Shankara shouldn't have to say this. This is the most obvious secret. You and I are influential people, which means we're influenced people. So why do we allow ourselves to be in dussanga? It's going to affect us. Again, we had studied that we underestimate how much protection we need. Our egos make us think we're strong enough to be in negativity without being negative. But the ego is deceiving us. We become negative. Practice for number 9. Be prepared for satsang. Be prepared. Just sitting here doesn't mean one is prepared. Okay. I'll share a quote with you that a teenage girl had told me in one of our camps. Please repeat. And you've heard this before. To be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late. And to be late is to not care at all. Now in satsang, we think, okay, I can come 5 minutes late and still tune in. Let's change the scenario to a movie theater. Now the new Star Wars movie is coming out. Suckers. So, if you're a Star Wars fan and the movie starts at 7:30, what time are you at the theater? That day, 7:30 a.m., right? Dressed up as Darth Vader or whoever it is. And being there early allows you to prepare for what you're going to experience, correct? If you show up on time, where are you sitting in the theater? In the back, by yourself. If you show up late, say 15 minutes late, and you find a seat, what are you thinking the whole time? What did I miss? I should have bought popcorn. I have to go to the bathroom, but I can't go now. Correct? Be prepared for satsang. Be punctual. Be rested. Be bathed. Come with a notebook. Be engaged. Whatever it takes, be engaged in this experience. Swami Abhedananda told us that the greatest fortune is daily satsang. Nothing can make you richer than having satsang on a daily basis. And I'd made a note to talk about, what did Swamiji say yesterday? That no satsang, you stupid? Didn't he say that, something like that? What is the saying in Trinidad? You'd mentioned that in class in the morning, right? No satsang, you stupid. Okay. That's what Acharya Shankara is saying. No satsang? You're stupid. Number 10. Bhagavato bhaktir dhrida dhiyatam. You see the dhiyatam again, which means to do. What should you do? Dhrida. Be firm, be established in what? Bhakti. Devotion, love. To whom? Bhagwan. In Exodus, this Christian text, I had written it down to read to you. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord, your God, am a jealous God. I'll read it again from Exodus. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord, your God, am a jealous God. Jealous God. Is there any messages in Srimad Bhagavad Gita that talk about the exact same message? What does anya mean? Other. Ananya? No other. Ananya bhakti. Ananya bhakti means you have to love me and no other. If you take this literally, you assign the word Jesus there. But if you study this in an implied way, the idea is that if you want God, you have to love God only. That's what Acharya Shankara is saying here. We have to grow up from Bhagwan Api to Bhagwan Eva. What does Api mean? You're not there yet? Also. Eva? Only. Who here would like to meet Bhagwan? Who here would also like to go on a worldwide cruise? Bhagwan is not coming. As long as there's any other want, need, whatever word you want to insert there, that's not Bhagwan, Bhagwan will wait. Bhagwan will wait for us to be mature enough to deserve Bhagwan. Now in this room, there's a lot of young adults born and raised in North America, like myself. And when we grew up, we didn't grow up in a bhakti environment. We grew up in a jnana environment. We pride ourselves on being intellectual. Don't be proud of that. It slows down our growth as we go further. It's just a means, it's not an ends. So when my parents were told by their parents that chant this, sit for this, remember this, they did it. Because that was the culture at the time. When my parents told me that, why? What does this mean? What kind of cult is this family? The way to develop bhakti, if it's not natural, is jnana. Jnana helps us to develop bhakti. The more you know about Bhagwan, the more you won't be able to stop yourself from loving Bhagwan. But you have to know Bhagwan first. Not just the form, not just the name, not just the tales, but to know Bhagwan. The way that you know your partner, the way you know yourself. You don't just know your form or name or history. You know yourself. And I'm not just saying this. What was Bhagwan Vedvyasa's, one of his final texts that he wrote? Srimad Bhagavatam. What did he write prior to that? Brahma Sutras. Correct? Mahabharata. Bhagavatam was one of his last texts. Acharya Shankara, same goes. His last texts were on bhakti. Tulsidas ji is an incarnation of whom? Valmiki ji. Valmiki ji wrote about dharma. It wasn't enough. He reincarnated to write about bhakti. You will know that you've gone through this course and life well when we're more interested in bhakti than jnana. Be mindful of that. Here's our practice. Number 10. To have an altar wherever you sleep. Have an altar in whatever room, whatever vicinity that you sleep in, have an altar. All of the people who travel for work, what does that mean? You need to have a traveling altar also. We travel with our makeup kit. We travel with our tie. We travel with 2 pairs of shoes. What about an altar? And specifically, when you go to sleep, you are returning to the lap of God. That's a very beautiful message, that you're returning to the lap of God. You're much more natural when you're asleep than when you're right now. And that's why when you're sleeping, you should awaken softly. To awaken in a rough way, you're leaving a place that is, it's too beautiful to leave that place in a rough way. Right? Like with an infant. You don't throw a bucket of water at the infant. Hey, be responsible. Right? You keep shaking gently. You blow, you sing, something to wake that infant up. Softly. Guruji doesn't use an alarm clock. Think about how many time zones he's in. How much important work he has in the morning, right? We don't use alarm clocks either. We have nothing to do in the morning. Softly. And now a point to note here, if you have to awaken softly, you also have to go to sleep softly. You have to go to sleep listening to mantras, to chanting. And not with headphones, not to any form of music. I met a group of older people in one city, and the teacher who had come into their community, small community, he said all of them have to chant chapter 12 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita before they go to sleep. And so they've been doing that for decades. Very wonderful group of people. Okay? So an altar in every room that you sleep in. Shantyadif parichiyatam. Parichiyatam means to nurture, to cultivate, to develop. Adi, etc., starting with shanti. Nourish shanti. In other words, shama. Another, after shama comes dhamma, danti. That's another word for that. So just interchangeable words are being used here. Nurture values to become virtues. Okay. When I say Bhagwan, what do you think of? Speak loudly. Bhagwan, go. Love, mission, omniscient, universal, surrender, loving, Ishwar, almighty. So you're just using other fancy words for another fancy word. Bhagwan actually has a meaning to it. This is very important to know. Bhagwan comes from the word bhagya. What does bhagya mean? Fortunate. The one who has fortunes. Bhagwan has 6 fortunes. And I'll list those for you. Fortune number 1 is called Aishwarya. In English, Aishwarya means joy. Bhagwan is joyous. You see Lord Krishna, he's smiling. Hanumanji, he's smiling. Gurudev, he's smiling. Bhagavati Radha, she's smiling. Joyous. Next is, Bhagwan has the fortune of dharma. Bhagwan is responsible. Responsible. Do you digest for yourself? Do you go back to your room and create peristalsis? Imagine we did have to do this voluntarily. I'm so sleepy, I don't want to do it. And just ferments in your body and becomes toxic and you die. See, Bhagwan's always responsible. All of that involuntary actions, Bhagavan is doing it. Someone is doing it, and it's not you. Bhagavan is doing that, responsible. Number 3, Bhagavan has the fortune of yasha. What does yasha mean? Don't say fame. Oh, Taylor Swift is famous. Lady Gaga is famous. Donald Trump is famous. Yasha means revered. Revered. Revered means respected and loved. Bhagavan is not. Ravana is famous, right? I can keep on going with that. 4, Shriya. Shriya means virtuous. Bhagavan is virtuous. You know, on the last day of the war between Ravana and Bhagavan Rama told Ravana, please just return my wife to me. She's my wife. You have your own wives. You have multiple wives. And I'll leave. And Ravana obviously didn't. But even when Ravana and everyone was destroyed, they all merged with Bhagavan Rama. Now talk about forgiveness. If you've seen the movie The Revenant, how much revenge people hold. It kills others, but it kills themselves. Kung Fu Panda 2 is all about revenge. But Bhagavan, virtues. After Shriya is Vairagya. Bhagavan is independent. If you've seen an image of Bhagavan Vishnu, he's just by himself. Forever. He doesn't feel lonely. Forever he's alone. Bhagavan Shiva the same way. Independent. And the last is Jnana. Bhagavan is wise. Wise. What were the virtues in English again? Number 1, joyous. Then, responsible. Revered. Virtuous. Independent and wise. Bhagavan has all of these virtues in infinite measure. So who is our Bhagavan? Our Bhagavan is virtues. We keep putting a name and a form to Bhagavan, but Bhagavan is virtue. So anyone who has these virtues in infinitude is also Bhagavan. We're not afraid to say that. Our problem is you're God and I'm not. Inferiority complex. Worse than that is I'm God and you're not. Superiority complex. But we're fine with saying we are Bhagavan. And don't be afraid to feel that. Because the cause pervades the effect. When someone asks you what your gotra is, what your lineage is, nobody knows. So we just name some rishi that starts with K, Kashyapa, Vishwamitra, some rishi that we've heard. But who is higher than that? Bhagavan. Your lineage is God. Tell people your lineage is God. But then you have to live up to it, isn't it? It's an opportunity. You all know who Mindy Kaling is? I think her last name is Kalinga, but she calls herself Kaling. Which is better than what some other people change in regards to their names. I met one person whose name is Dhananjayaha. They call him Dan. So she was asked, you're a famous South Asian woman. How does it feel to be a role model? Her response, and I like it a lot, she said, I'm happy to be a role model because it makes me have to live up to that. That is a good answer. She's taking it as an opportunity, not an obligation. Very good. Anyways, practice. The practice for number 11, allow others to speak. Allow others to speak. What is one virtue that every single person needs? Patience, isn't it? And when someone's speaking, we already know the answer, or we just want to intervene, we just want to debate. But if you just allow others to speak, patience will come. Allow others to speak. In fact, that's one of Bhagavan Krishna's names, Manohara. Mana means mind. Hara, the one who steals your mind. He doesn't let you think or speak or act about you. He wants all of your thinking and speaking and acting to be about him. And if you've ever observed, if you're in the vicinity of Guruji, Swami Tejramananda, and he's speaking and everyone's eyes, their mouths, their bodies, their minds, everything is on him. And if someone says something else, Guruji pays no attention to them and brings it back to himself. Not because he's narcissistic, which if you take it literally, but he's saying is, I'm able to dismantle your ego, let me do it. But as long as you bring it back to yourself, you don't allow him to dismantle that ego. Allow others to speak. When we speak, we always bring ourselves into that conversation. Dridataram karmashu santyajyatam. This is number 12. Tyajya, renounce. Santyajya, renounce completely. Karmashu dridataram, the selfishness in our actions, we have to renounce, we have to let go of completely. Santyajyatam is a very nice word. If you have a cavity in two teeth, you know, cavity, free tooth, cavity, and they just remove the cavity in one of those teeth. What happens to the healthy tooth? That other cavity is going to grow over there, correct? So if they really want to protect that tooth that is healthy, they have to remove santyajyatam. The cavities have to go fully, or it's going to come back. Okay, let's look at this from a Shastra's perspective. Visually. 4 types of karmas. There's 5, I'm going to highlight 4. Here, on the right side, is called Nitya Karma. What does that mean? Nitya Karma. Does Nitya mean daily? Here we'll call it regular responsibilities. Nitya Karma, regular responsibilities. What are your regular responsibilities? Showering, yes. Here twice a day. What else? Eating 3 times a day, not more than that. And on and on and on. Okay. We move here. Naimittika karma. What does that mean? Special responsibilities. Special responsibilities. What are some of your special responsibilities? Birthdays. Celebration tomorrow, correct? This discourse, Nitya Karma. Tomorrow celebration, Friday celebration, Naimittika Karma. Here. Now we go to the center. This is what we're involved with most. It's called Kamya Karma. What does Kamya Karma mean? Selfish responsibilities. Selfish actions. We don't use the word responsibility anymore. Selfish actions. And if you go one more over here, it's called Nishiddha Karma. Prohibited actions. Prohibited, selfish, special, regular. How do you get out of prohibited actions? By getting lost in selfish actions. How do you get out of selfish actions? Get involved in special responsibilities. How do you get out of special responsibilities? Lose yourself in regular responsibilities. Swamiji was talking about that with health, right? I run 2 hours once a week versus I run every day for 20 minutes. Which requires more discipline? Regular responsibility, correct? That's what Acharya Shankara is teaching us here. Let go of Nishiddha Kamya by understanding and following your responsibilities. In many of our mandirs, maybe not here in Trinidad so much, but certainly in North America, there's always a giving tree where people have donated such money and their name is there. You've all seen that? If you give to have your name on that tree, what does that do for your mind? Nothing. Maybe makes it worse. If you give with or without that tree, what does it do for your mind? Makes you work hard to be comfortable with less. Same action, but the same implementation, but the intellect behind that implementation is totally different. Your actions mean nothing. It is completely based on attitude. This is very important to note because in our mandir culture, we see people who cry. We see people who know how to chant everything. We see people who offer everything. And we don't. And we feel those people are such great bhaktas. But why are they bhaktas? If you go in there without beggary, you go in there to be in the presence of Bhagavan, you are greater, if I can use that word. It is not about action. Every Vedanta course student, every one of us actually, when you compare yourself to another person, that comparison devolves into what comes? Jealousy. Correct? At one point you may feel you're greater than someone, but you keep thinking about it, jealousy. It stops at jealousy. But then it devolves into one more level. What does jealousy turn into? Insecurity. Everybody here has their own insecurity. And for those who are living in an ashram, it gets magnified because there's no escape. Can't go to the movie, can't go for a drink, can't do anything. You're stuck in this ashram. So the idea of comparing, you're comparing someone on the surface. What do you know about their intellect? Don't compare. Focus on your intention. Implementation is secondary. For all of our Vedanta course students, I promise you, if you can tune into what I'm saying, you'll have a much better time here. You'll be a much more focused person. Practice for number 12. You're not going to want to hear this, but I must tell you. Sleep by what time? 9 is ideal, but probably not practical. 10:30. Sleep by 10:30 p.m. p.m. Okay, now, this is too important for me not to address in a full way. 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the sattvic part of the day. That is when the outer world and the inner world is most calm. One worldly example, planned surgeries happen at what time? Early in the morning, correct? Planned surgeries. It's important. They have to be ready. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. is the rajasic part of the day. What time does the New York Stock Exchange open? I think 9, but if it's not, around 9 o'clock, correct? Honking, transacting, fighting, eating, all of that happens. 9 p.m. to 3 a.m., prostitution, gambling, violence, theft, happens all day, but mostly happens in this period, correct? The tamasic part of the day, when there's most darkness outside and there's the most darkness inside. So truly, you should sleep at 9 and get up at 3. You will spend 0 minutes awake in tamas. That is a great strategy to let go of selfishness. See the connection there? But I know it's difficult. Dinner ends at 9, you have to drive back home, etc., etc. So the compromise is 1.5 hours into tamas. Sleep at 10:30, get up at 4:30. Deal? And it's pretty easy here. Wait till you leave here. And if you live in a cold part of the continent, it's so hard. It's so dark all day. The bed is so warm. You just want to stay in that cocoon. There's so much Maya outside of that room. Not in the room, only outside of the room. Here, it's too hot to keep sleeping. It's too noisy to keep sleeping. But sleep by 10:30. My father taught my sisters and I this at a very young age. In a very annoying way, he taught us this. We were like, we're just kids. We just want to sleep. Doesn't matter. Go, get up. But it stayed with us and has helped us a lot. I was in one place giving talks on freedom through relationships, and I brought this point up. And then the last day of talks, then I was going to someone's home for Bhiksha, and the husband in this family, he never comes to discourses, but he came to each discourse, sat in the back, and he was driving me to Bhiksha. And so he's driving, and his wife is in the back seat, kids are in the back further. And I said, very honestly, you never come to discourses, but I've seen you every day. And today I saw you actually, acknowledging what was being shared. What did you learn over the last 4 days? And he sort of looks to me and looks forward and says, Vivekji, what I learned today is that my kids are Rakshasas. Because at 9 o'clock, the Rakshasas become stronger. So that's what he realized. Nothing about him. His kids are rock. What does that say about him? About him then? Really, the rules of engagement in war in Ramayana, sunsets, nobody fights. Mahabharata, same way. But in both, it was Ravana and Duryodhana who started to break those rules. They got stronger at night. And for you to tune into this, you study for yourself. Are you more discriminate at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m.? You think about it. Do you have a tendency to overeat more at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m.? Go to sleep. As soon as dinner's over, run to your room and sleep. You'll save yourself from the demons inside. Bhuta pisacha nikata nahi ave. The ghosts and goblins are not outside. Acharya Shankara says in Atma Bodha, when you study this, the Rakshasas are likes and dislikes. He calls likes and dislikes Rakshasas. That means every form of social media is a Rakshasa. Isn't it? It is. Today in devotion, I told those high school students, use social media before you come to school and do not use it until the next morning. Some people are addicted to social media. They hashtag breathing. They hashtag cooking. They hashtag everything. Who cares? But they have no higher purpose. Sad. Number 13. Sadvidvan upasripyatam. Upasripyatam means to seek, to find protection from a vidvan. Vidvan means someone who knows. But knows what? Sat. Someone who knows the highest. Let's look at this from a Shastra's perspective. Chapter 1, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Who's giving instructions to who? Prince Arjuna is giving instructions to Bhagavan Krishna. Put my chariot between both armies. I want to see who I'm fighting against and who I'm fighting with. And Prince Arjuna started to fall apart. Chapter 2, who's giving instructions to whom? Lord Krishna is giving instructions to Prince Arjuna. Things start to get put back together. Chapter 18, who's giving instructions to who? Nobody's giving instructions to anyone. Bhagavan Krishna at the end says, Arjuna, now you do whatever you want. Arjuna followed this practice of finding protection from a Someone who knows the highest. And what will that person teach you? That the highest is not me, but the highest is inside of you. Your guru is you, but you don't listen to yourself, so your guru takes on a name and a form outside. But for those who are very pure, they are in tune with themselves, and themselves are in tune with their Atman. At the end of Vivek you will see Guru Shishya both say Hari Om, and Swamiji said they get lost. They just go their own way. It's this science is just infused with Swatantra, which means independence. Someone who knows the highest is someone who's experienced the highest. Brahmavit, Brahmeva, Bhavati. The one who knows the highest is someone who's experienced the highest. And what do? They explain their experiences. Find someone who's experienced and ask them to explain their experiences, and you will see that they were exactly like all of us. As a suggestion, you should read a book called My Trek Through Uttarakhand by Puja Swami Chinmayananda. I feel, and this is totally offline Vivek's opinion, I feel he wrote this when he wasn't enlightened. He complains about mosquitoes like we do. But then if you see his writing after a certain period of time, all of that loose writing that we would write about goes away. But it's inspiring to know that he also felt the suffering that comes with mosquitoes. Like all of us. One more point related to this before I tell you the practice. Have you ever seen an atom before? You've never seen an atom before. But your whole life, professors have told you that there are protons, neutrons, electrons, godtrons, lifetrons. Yes, 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 right? Forward this to this person, to this person, to this person. And then you have rishis who come here and tell you, your nature is joy. And give you this very logically, experientially, and we say no, no, no. To teach an objective science, all you need is your ears. You don't need anything else. If I'm teaching you about geography and tectonic plates, you don't need me. You just need a textbook. The textbook says there are tectonic plates, they're crashing, Mount Everest is growing. Period. But when it comes to a subjective science, you can't get to your ears. First, you have to go through your eyes. You have to see someone who lives this message before it can evolve to your ears. You have to live with such a being. And when you do, you go from belief to faith. Then you don't need to see them with your eyes anymore. All you need is your ears. Are you all catching me with that? Objective science, you just need a textbook. Subjective science, you need someone who can bring that subject to life. And when it comes to life, then you don't need them anymore. You still want it, but you don't need it then. And that's why at our ashram, at the end of the course, I told you, there was a sign that said, get out, get lost. You've lived here for 3 years, now get lost. Don't be a person out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight still, listen. Listen, watch someone who lives like this. Okay, here's our practice. The 13th practice is to chant Gayatri Mantra during sunrise, noon, and sunset. Just once each time. If you have time for more, great. When you see the sunrise, chant Gayatri Mantra. Noon, and when the sun sets. What is Gayatri Mantra? Gayanam Trayate iti Gayatri. Gayana means the one who sings. Trayate, crosses over. The one who sings crosses over. Crosses over what? Fear. Dvaita. Gayatri Mantra, you have to internalize this, that when you see the sun and it illuminates all of creation, you want that same type of illumination in your intellect. What did I say your guru was? Your intellect. Who is Lord Krishna really? Intellect. I hope I didn't make that too deep. You've been here for a month now, 3 weeks. You should be ready for all of this. It's much more enjoyable to teach in a Vedanta course than not in a Vedanta course. It's much harder, actually, to teach outside of a Vedanta course because people are not ready to take the highest. Here, you can give the highest, and whether you get it or not, doesn't matter. That's your problem. You have to work very hard to make this accessible to people outside of the Gurukul. So Gayatri Mantra, chant it 3 times, internalize that you want your intellect to be brilliant. That's you learning from someone who knows. Okay? Number 14, Pratidinam tat paduka sevyatam. What does seva mean? What is the best service you can offer to someone? To love them. Tat paduka. Whose padukas? Tat here means the person you just sought protection from. And pratidinam, I think that was in the Sanskrit board today. What does pratidinam mean? Every day. So every day, what you should do is love the padukas of someone who knows, someone who's experienced. In Ramayana, you will study that the Veda incarnates as Ramayana. That's why it's known as the 5th Veda. And Ramayana is actually bark. It's a log. When would you ever need a bark or a log in nature? Think. When would you need a log? If you're drowning, correct? Now, what do we refer to as the ocean and drowning and all of that? Samsara. Goswamiji will share that Ramayana is the nauka. Is the bark that helps you to reach the shore that is Brahman. The ocean is samsara, Brahman is the shore. Guru Paduka Stotram. Don't we say that the Guru's Padukas are the nauka? What does nauka mean? Boat. Now this seems very fanatical. If you see the Chinmaya Jyoti Yatra they did in Bharat, unreal. For those who came on our yatra, we got to see the completion of the Chinmaya Jyoti Yatra and how the Jyoti is now at Chinmaya Vibhuti. And they did a fantastic job of making people understand what these padukas are. So I'll explain. If you're hiking through the river to go to Tapovanam, and you're wearing nothing on your feet, how fast or hard can you move through that hiking? You have to be much more nimble because your feet can get hurt, correct? But if you're wearing rubber shoes, how fast and hard can you move up that river then? You can be much more hard with your steps and fast. Yes? These padukas symbolize balance. When you have shoes, you're balanced. When you don't have shoes, you're less balanced. Not that functionally padukas are very balanced. If you've ever tried wearing karaus, they're called karaus, it's very difficult. Because you have to stick your toes in there and you have to kind of lift and walk at the same time. It's difficult. I don't know how Swami Dhirananda does it, but he does it. So they symbolize balance. Now you tell me, when the world comes and hits you, When the world hits all of you, how do you stay balanced? Where does the world hit you? Your arms? In your mind. Insults, comparisons, jealousies, fears, correct? How do you stay balanced when you're getting pushed from all of these sides? Virtues. That's how. These padukas again symbolize the balance that comes with virtues. So here Acharya Shankara is saying every day you should worship virtues. You should love virtues. And anything you love, you become. You will study Bhaja Govindam, I think. 6 levels of bhaja. What is the lowest form of bhaja? Sing, to sing. Higher than that? Seeking. You start to think about it. Higher than that? Serving. You don't just think about it, but you act on it. Higher than that? Worship. Your whole lifestyle revolves around what you initially just sang about. Higher than that? Love. You start to give yourself up to that. And the highest form of bhaja is to be that. Pratidinam tat paduka sevitam. Sing, seek, serve, love, worship, love, be. Practice. Practice perspective. Visualize your Sadguru with you. Visualize your Sadguru always, nitya, with you. When you walk, when you talk, when you're confused, when you're fearless, always. Have you all seen the movie The Peaceful Warrior? There's that one scene where he's flirting with this girl. And they kind of show her disappear, and they show the guru there, and he throws her off. And because he visualized the guru, he actually prevented himself from being indulgent. We should do the same. Dinner today, when there's cake. Not today, but whenever cake is here. Then you had your first piece, you're entitled to 1 piece. You go in for your second piece. Imagine Guruji pointing his finger at you. Are you entitled to that piece? I don't think so. And then he laughs, and then you walk away. So visualize your guru with you. We will be a better person for that. And what I like to do to make this practical for me is I read a quote every day. I read a quote from Gurudev and or Guruji every day. That quote is them staying with me. This is why I put up the reflection adventures of the day. So people hold those words with them as they go about their day. Such useless material on social media. And it doesn't have to be that way. We're almost finished this shloka. We only have 3 more to go after this. So many sadhanas. Brahmaik akshara artyatham. What does artha mean? Money, correct? What does artha really mean? Meaning. Meaning. Artha sanganam. We chanted that yesterday. Artha means meaning. Purusha, artha. Purushartha. What is meaningful to humans? Ek akshara. Akshara means alphabet. What is the ek akshara? What is the ek akshara? Om. Here Acharya Shankara is saying is that you should know the meaning of that ek akshara, which is Om, which is actually Brahman. Om is Brahman. Okay. From the Shastra's perspective, you will study Mandukya Upanishad. And the first mantra, the first line says, Om iti etat aksharam. Iti sarvam. Om etat iti aksharam. Om is that Brahman, and that Brahman is sarvam. All. Okay, so the Shastra is verifying this. Now we come to a more adhyatmic level. Please think about a cast curtain light. Please think about a cast curtain light. What are you thinking about? Nothing. I just made that up right now. You can't think about something that's nothing, correct? Yes, this is proof of that. For the mind to hold on to any idea, that idea has to have a form and a name. A form and a name. Now, Brahman, when I say Brahman, what do you think of? Nothing, right? You can't think of anything. Anything you think of is wrong. Akashavat, it's like the sky. No, it's not. Then there's space beyond sky, so Brahman gone. You can't think of Brahman. It's when you stop thinking that Brahman comes. Swami Ishwarananda had seen the Nike slogan, just do it. So he said they should make one. Meditation, just don't do it. That's what meditation is, right? Just don't do it. So, the name and form of Brahman is Om. And it is the simplest, purest name and form. That's why it is Brahman. It's so pure that it is Brahman. Okay? Because the mind needs that. It needs an alambana. It needs a support to get to Brahman. The example Gurudev uses is of the pole vault. Imagine the pole vault. The pole itself is the Om. Okay? You have the body, mind, intellect. You're the pole vaulter. And you're using Om, and you plant it, which means you're trying to find out the meaning of Om. And as you do, it's lifting you higher, 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 higher. And then finally, you let go of that pole, and what happens? The momentum carries you to Brahman. But if you hold on to that name and form, you hold on to finitude, what happens? You just get hurt. People who can't let go, they just get hurt. They feel, I've been studying for so many decades, I've been practicing for so many years, and no, nothing. It's because we haven't let go. Practice for 15. Every page that you write on, you should write Om on it. Every page you write on, you should write Om on it. You writing Om should remind you that the purpose of that page is freedom. Writing that, you should feel that invocation that what you're doing is for freedom. So when you pay a tax bill, write Om, give it to the bank. When you're writing your notes, do that. When you write a check, do that. Write letters, do it. By accident, I started doing this in university. So one day, I was writing a business exam, 1,500 people in the lecture hall. Exam is finished, 4 hours. My specific professor runs down the aisle, students everywhere. Vivek! What are those symbols you write on the paper? Does it mean that you want to kill me? He was a really weird professor. This is what he's saying in front of 1,500 people. I'm saying, just come here, I'll tell you what it means. Because I write Om and I write SG. SG means Sadguru. And I tell him, I said, these symbols, they remind me of focusing on this exam or anything that I do. And he said, oh, that's cool. I made it out of business school, so it worked. So write Om on your pages. Okay? And our last practice for today. Shruti Shiro Vakyam Sama Karnyatam. And I think you know these words. When you see the word Karna, what should you think? Listening. If the prefix sam is there, listen well. Shruti Shiro Vakyam. What does Shruti mean? Veda. Shruti means Veda. The Shiraha. What is the head or the highest of the Veda? Upanishads. Vakya, the teachings. In other words, listen well to the teachings of the knowledge part of the Veda. Okay? From the Shastra's perspective. What does Upanishad mean? Upa, near. Ni, below. Shad, sit. Is Upanishad a book or an intention? It's an intention. If you want to learn well about yourself, you have to come empty. Sitting near and below, you have to empty your form and your name. Another word for Upanishad is Shruti. You shouldn't be talking, you should be listening. And there's a very practical application to this. Back in the day, they didn't have corrective lenses like we now do. So what they had people do is memorize the entire Veda when they were younger, when very young, starting at like 6 years old. How many mantras in the Veda? 100,000. And if you learned all 100,000 mantras, what did your last name become? Chaturvedi. And if you memorized 3 of the Vedas instead of 4, your name became Trivedi. 2? Divedi. They don't have such a thing as Vedi, but Ardha Vedi. I know half of the Veda. My last name is Mantra. I know 1. So you memorized all of this. And the idea is that as you got older and you couldn't read anymore, that didn't inhibit you from thinking because you already had that you already had that file saved. Correct? But if you're dependent on that text, you can't see, you can't think about that. So that's why the adhyatmic meaning here is the tradition of Shravanam. Every practice is about listening. With one's acharyas, with one's sadguru, you do not speak traditionally until they speak. In Vivek Chudamani, the shishya will ask the guru if they can ask a question. And if you're that humble, who's going to say no? No, you're being too nice. Right? Even when you go from the 12th samskara, which is samavartana, you've completed your study in the Gurukula, and then you ask the guru if you're ready to leave. You ask the guru if you're ready to love another person. In other words, you get permission to go to vivaha. Such depth. Now we have game plans of eloping, you know? Maybe we should invite our parents. Maybe not. Humility is infused with listening. Upanishad, Shruti, Shravanam. Practice. The practice here is, whenever there is an opportunity to learn, come ready with your notes and take notes. Take notes. When you write down what you're learning, it magnifies that learning. A technique with remembering people's names. What should you do? Write their name down. It'll help you remember their name. I have all of our yatris' names in this book. Writing what they're doing well, what they're not doing well. So take notes. I found when we left the course that our books were given to us by Guruji, but they're Gurudev's commentaries most of the time. So Gurudev's words, Guruji gave the discourses, those are his words. My notes were, both of them processed through me. So this became most meaningful for me were my notes. And that's why I would encourage people to be disciplined with taking notes. Okay? What is the ninth? We'll just take up today. Ninth, sadhana. What was our practice? Be prepared for satsang. In satsang, where should you sit ideally? Second row. First row, everyone can see what you're doing. Second row, you're still close, but nobody can see what you're doing. Number 10 or 2. Say 2. Have an altar wherever you sleep. That altar, you should have an icon of your Ishta Devata, your personal God, your Sadguru, that's your religious guide, and something beautiful from nature. It could be a flower, it could be a grain of rice, it could be a diya. Number 3 today, practice. Allow others to speak. Don't you find that when you're speaking about something and someone else hears a key word and it has nothing to do with them, but they'll insert themselves into that conversation? I find that with Niagara Falls all the time. I'll say I'm from Niagara Falls. They'll come up with some totally purposeless story about Niagara Falls related to that. And it's just because we're so insecure that we have to speak. You would have noticed the yatris, breakfast they eat by themselves. Tomorrow they're doing 12 hours of Mauna, 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. tomorrow, starting tomorrow night. To allow others to speak. You close your mouth to help open your mind. 12. What was the 4th practice for today? Sleep by 10:30. Days when I am able to get up at 4 a.m., the amount of work I do between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. is the same amount of work as I do between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. So those days, I actually have 2 days contained within 1 day. Is there anyone here who has too much time? Is there anyone here who's not stressed out about how to balance everything? The next 2 days in devotion, I'm doing a time management exercise with the high school students because even high school students are too pressed for time. But it's all a lie, actually. Everybody has more time than they need, but we lack discipline. And if you start to sleep earlier, you will find you will naturally bring more discipline into your life. Practice number 5. Chant Gayatri Mantra at sunrise, noon, and sunset. That brilliance of Gayatri, which is known as the essence of all of the Veda. That is the one mantra that summarizes those 100,000 mantras. Chant it with the internalization to bring my intellect that teaching. The 6th practice, visualize your Sadguru with you. What does WWW stand for? What does it stand for? World Wide Web, right? That's the literal meaning. The implied meaning is, what would the wise do? What would the wise do? Which is the opposite of the internet. What would the wise do? I had heard someone say, if you wouldn't do it in front of your grandparents, don't do it. Half of the things we do, we would stop. So visualize what would the wise would do. Sheila always tells me, I'll give you just so personal how I try to practice this. Guruji's transition is on January 19th. And I just want to go. Emotionally, I just need to be there. And Sheila's straight response to this was, what would Guruji want you to do? Because if I go, I have to change so much work that is scheduled for those 2 weeks. I have to move all of that. And she's right. Guruji wouldn't want me to go. He'll say, what are you doing here? Go work. I had asked him once if I can go to South Africa for a camp that was going on. He said, stay and do your work. That's the tough love I was mentioning yesterday. That tough love is, you don't have to interpret it. You just have to follow it. So what would the wise do? That is a great way to practice our 14th piece of advice from Acharya Shankara. The 7th piece of advice today, Write Om on as much as you can without being fanatical about it. Make it meaningful. I'm going to turn the mic off for this portion. Meaningfully. And the last advice that Acharya Shankara shared with us today, what is our practice? Take notes. I've told my parents that they should not use the notebooks they got from India. They shouldn't use those. They should buy nice notebooks that can last for a long time. These kind of notebooks, these are your most precious asset. Don't be casual with your notes. You need a good book to keep this in. You'll see it will get damaged, it will fade. Take good notes in good context also. Okay? Sant Valmiki ji was asked, why did you write Ramayana? Did you ever know this? Why did Valmiki ji write Ramayana? He wrote Ramayana because he felt like he was a dry leaf that was being tossed around by the wind. Sant Valmiki ji. He was a dry leaf tossed around by the wind. Now, for those who live in the northeast, when you see leaves like in a wind tunnel, who knows where those leaves are going? When we bring sadhana into our lives, we stop being that dry leaf. We become the tree. We stop being subject to the wind. We are not affected by context because we are invoking content. Nothing is more important than what you're experiencing here. When Ravana comes to Mother Sita and says, if you don't marry me, I will kill you, she picks up a blade of grass and speaks to him, looking at the blade of grass, implying to him that this blade of grass is deserving of my sight, not you. Ravana, the Bhakta of Lord Shiva, the king of Lanka, the ruler of the world. To Mother Sita, he's just less than a blade of grass. And you'll study soon, Acharya Shankara says the same. All of our achievements related to pleasure, possession, position are equivalent to blades of grass. So how many blades of grass do you have? Nothing is more vital, pivotal, I don't know what word to use, than peace. This is why we study Sadhana Panchakam. To practice peace, to be established in peace. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi, Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Harihi Om.